Hello, and welcome to Thriving in the Age of Disruption. Today, Dr. Ramesh catches up with an old friend she has not seen for over 30 years, Mr. Rajiv Dalmia, who is now a successful tech entrepreneur and angel investor based in the Middle Eastern city of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. Rajiv is the founder and chairman of Data Direct Group, a global provider of digital transformation services and solutions.
Welcome, Rajiv, to Thriving in the Age of Disruption podcast series. I'm so excited to have you here. It's been some 30 odd years that we last met each other.
Yeah, I think it was about 30 odd years. It's firstly great to be back. The journey has been long, but at the same time, we've shortened it very quickly through this initiative.
That's right. I wanted to start off the session by having you introduce yourself. Anything that you want to share with the listeners?
Sure. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I am Rajiv Dalmia, an Indian by my origin as well as my nationality. I left home very early in life to study abroad, and that's where I met you, Ramesh.
Yes, that's right.
And then the journey started. So from a career point of view, it was only after 92 where I started working and trying to create my identity, coming from a business family though, and then traveled a few countries. Of course, Australia was the starting point, and then to Indonesia, to Nepal, and then finally landed up in Dubai in UAE, actually not realizing that I would spend the rest of my life living here in 96 when I landed here. And yes, since then, it has been a journey of about 26 odd years, which has gone through various ups and downs, part of the family business to start with, and then eventually starting on my own in 2002. So yeah, 2 decades of forming my own entity, a company called Data Direct. On a personal level, married early in life, which was so fortunate to have my life partner with me in all my ups and downs of life. God's been extremely kind, blessed us with 2 lovely children. One is a young 28 years old, and my daughter is 21, pursuing her education in Boston in her final year of college. And we have a beautiful family here in Dubai. Business keeps me busy, of course, with some other passions, which I can speak about as we move on in this podcast.
Wonderful. Rajiv, I'm going to dive directly into the conversation, and I wanted to start off exploring an entrepreneurial mindset with you. I define an entrepreneurial mindset as someone who has the ability to manage risk, who is creating value, and above all, who is resourceful when faced with problems. So, here's what I want to know. How do you get the courage to create your own entrepreneurial identity, even though you came from a business family?
Sometimes you don't realize when you are growing up in your childhood, there are lots of moments which create a very big impact on your mind. Your thinking gets created or molded with those incidents, which actually pivot you into a specific career or a role in your life. And being from a business family, for example, my father had his own business, and obviously being an entrepreneur himself, we were always in that mindset or situations where there were always risks being taken. We could see him taking risks. I could see my brothers, my uncles. So we were always into a risk environment, taking risk, either getting good results or failure, but always in that kind of waves of excitement. Sometimes we used to wonder, why are we living in this kind of risk environment? We had friends who have professional backgrounds, their parents doing jobs, whether banks or whatever, and having a very set careers. They used to think that we will do our college, we will get into a job or professional life. I sometimes used to think that's very, very interesting, very easy, more stable. You can enjoy life, you can travel, get your leaves from the company you're working for, and have a balanced kind of a life. But then I tried to do that, I'll tell you honestly. In the middle, when we were all getting into our careers, I got an opportunity to work somewhere, and I realized I actually can't report to anyone except my father or my brother, who was part of the joint family business. I had this issue of reporting. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do the politics in an organization where I worked. I felt that I'm not cut out to do a job, though I wanted to tell you honestly, because when I started from scratch, I didn't have anything. So I said, there is no way I can start business. That put me against a wall, and listen, I have to do something of my own. And what do I do? Because I had moved out of my family business for some reasons, which is very, very personal. I had a lot of conflicts, and then I started something totally of my own. I was very egoistic. I didn't want to do what they were doing. I said, I'll make it on my own. And I knew it's a long journey because they had a set business, they had a set industry. I didn't take anything from my parents. My father decided, let's start from scratch. And yeah, when I look back, I see that that was the best decision I did because I created my own journey. Whatever it is, big or small is not the issue. But when I talk to my parents, my father, they're still alive and healthy, luckily. My brother, my uncles, they used to discourage me earlier. Why are you doing this? Why don't you just stay in the family, do what we are doing, be happy, just take whatever bit you have and just live a life. Why you want to just go to another country? They were not supportive of this. But now they respect me for that. They look up to me, obviously, because I'm the only guy who did it out of the entire family of my father and his brothers and his children, their children, and my brothers, my siblings. So yeah, it's interesting. That's been a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset, which I didn't realize I had it, but I think circumstances forced me to take those risks. So, yeah.
That story really gives us an insight into how an entrepreneurial mindset has someone be resourceful, manage uncertainty, take risks, as well as then create value. And you've done a great job, Rajiv. Congrats to you.
Thank you.
Your current business actually does work in the BPO industry. What was that journey all about?
Our family business is in the oil and gas industry. And we were thinking of expanding that in the international markets. So when I started my business journey after my master's from Australia, I was constantly traveling to Indonesia in 92 to set up something there. And I think I missed out on a lot of those holidays when we had those breaks in the university. When my friends were traveling and seeing the country and enjoying the holidays, I was traveling to Indonesia on short 3-day trips, trying to set up whatever I could and trying to monetize my education funding from my family, which actually resulted me to then set up myself in Indonesia, in Jakarta for a couple of years. But then for whatever reasons, the venture which we were getting into did not sort of fructify into a successful business. It failed, let's put it like that. I was very young that time. I was probably 26, 27 years. Still kind of seeing how to accept failures. Then I was sent into another venture into Nepal. Again, it was a family decision. They decided we want to get into manufacturing of audio and video cassettes. That time, that was what was in the industry. The CDs had not even come into play. Again, it was a very disruptive kind of an environment. Media was going through its own challenges. I said, okay, fine, let me try that. I went into that. That did not succeed. We invested into some technology that sort of changed very quickly. I was in Nepal for nearly a year and a half, 2 years. It didn't work and I was back to zero. I came back to India and I didn't know what to do. So I asked my family, do you have anything for me? Should I go back into the oil and gas business within the family in Delhi? So they were not very supportive of that. They didn't need me in that business. They said, no, I don't think so. You have any role to play. You've been out of the country for a few years. So decide what you want to do. That was a bit of a bummer. I was against the wall. I had my first child that time. So my wife and I thought, listen, let's get out of India. This is not the place to be. And I was anyway, had traveled abroad. I was trying to look for opportunities. And that's how I came to Dubai in 96, 97. I was working for somebody in the oil and gas industry because that's the experience I had. And then I just left my family business to start my own journey, not realizing that I would become an entrepreneur one day again. The 3-4 years I worked in Dubai, in UAE under somebody, that was the time I realized that I just can't work for somebody. It's not my mindset. I can't take orders from somebody, not happy with the kind of remuneration I'm getting. That's not my lifestyle. I wanted to earn. I was ambitious. I wanted to grow. I wanted to network. I wanted to travel. I wanted to do a lot of things. I had a lot of fire and I just couldn't work for somebody. That's for sure. I wanted to be a leader and lead, basically. That obviously resulted in my friction with my bosses, with the owners of the company. So I left again with nothing in hand. I didn't know what to do. And I didn't want to get into the oil and gas business. In 2001, 2002, that was the time I started. So I just spoke to some friends in India and I said, listen, I don't want to come back. Can you help me? What do we do? I'm sitting here. I've been here 4-5 years. I love Dubai. Great place. I find myself living here for the next maybe 10, 20 years more. Suggest me something. So I had some friends into the outsourcing business. They were doing direct mail. That time it was an industry which was really something in the whole marketing industry. That's how I started. We ran a mail room operation. So my clients that time were automotive companies or tobacco companies where I used to do surveys, get the forms, entry. And this was all for the Dubai market here. And then I used to outsource it to India for them to do the work and then charge the arbitrage. So that's how I survived. I started from a one small office apartment where I used to live. In that, I had a small room, and that's the journey I started off with. And then I set up a company here, of course, with some partners, which I didn't have funding in. So I just borrowed some money. They took an equity in the company. And then I realized that I sold myself very cheap because I was doing all the hard work. I was earning, but I was giving them the profits.
Yeah.
So I said, this won't go for too long. We have more than 2, 3 partners. I bought them out, but I could not buy them out completely. So I had another partner. That was in 2005. Data Direct had 2 partners, me and one more person. That's it. And then another phase of our journey started from there till about 2014, 9 years of extremely hardworking, traveling in the region, understanding the markets, knowing the industry, how it's evolving. That was the time BPO was really coming up in this part of the world. And I did not know what I'm getting into. But I was lucky, I would say, to a large extent. I was able to network very well. And that's my biggest strength, which helped me win business from friends. They trusted me. They said, if we give anything to Rajiv, he will deliver. Now, I did not know the industry, so I had to hire good people. And I could not afford good people because they come at a high price and we were not in that situation to pay high salaries. So I used to get people from India, train them, get them at low salaries, but where I could afford. And they also wanted a break in this part of the world. So we had a good team initially, which brought me from level A to level B. When we got to that level, I needed more experienced people. They costed me more. So I had to get another set of people. And that's how the company started growing. From literally one person, today we have 1,000 people working for me in UAE today, and
Wow.
offices in the whole GCC in Saudi, Oman, and Bahrain. And of course, we're looking at expanding into some other markets in Africa also as we move on. So it's been about 20 years of this growth, overcoming challenges, managing people, getting your cash flows in place, paying people their salaries on time, getting a good reputation in the market. Now we have about 5 or 6 different verticals within the BPO industry, which we service. So yeah, it's been a very interesting growth story, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And what had you keep the faith? I mean, on the bad days when you had all those challenges?
I had nothing to look back and go back to. So for me, it was only one way forward. And even today, I believe that if you don't innovate, if you don't grow, if you feel that, listen, this is it, I want to stop here, let me just maintain my lifestyle or maintain my turnover or maintain my company, it's surely a recipe for failure. You have to constantly innovate, you have to grow. In business, if you say, I'm satisfied, then your business is not going to survive. There will be others who will come and take over and your model will crumble. So I think one of the reasons why even today you have to be competitive. I am very competitive. I believe that you have to be better than your competition. You have to see the niche markets where you can play, make an impact, fill those gaps, what market needs. That's where the money is. That's where the challenges are. And that's where you need to play your game well.
Well, Rajiv, thank you so much for sharing some of your key strategies in making sure that your business is sustainable. And whether it is being open and curious as an individual who's looking at growth and innovation, right down to how do you stay competitive so that you can identify the key niche market. I think you've done a great dive into entrepreneurship in a foreign country, and kudos to you for that. So, what is your leadership style?
There are different kinds of leaders, and you don't learn leadership. I mean, I don't read books on leadership. I'll tell you honestly, a lot of people do. I think it's very inherent. It's about your character. One of the big things about leadership is managing people because we are in the people's business. So it's about selecting the right kind of people, trusting people, letting them do what they want to do, but obviously with accountability. And in business, of course, numbers are very important. If you are a good numbers guy and if you are a good people's person, I mean, these are the 2 things I feel leaders should have. Apart from obviously risk taking is a very big thing. So yeah, on a scale of 10, if you put these to say 7, 8, typically on all these matters, that is kind of a concoction, a mix, which makes a good leader and makes you successful in some way or the other. And of course, hard work, knowledge, you just keep putting that into the curry and you get a beautiful dish out of it, a leadership dish.
That's right. If you can just elaborate a little bit more, what about selecting the right people? I mean, did you have a recipe for that? How did you learn that?
Because I grew from nothing and literally with no funding. As you move up the value chain or as you move up the business, the ladder, you require partnerships, you require clients to give you business, you require people to execute your job. So in all these three relationships, whether it's people who you hire, whether it's clients who give you business, whether it's suppliers who help you deliver, or the partners who believe in you, the underlying thing is trust. If you are able to give that feeling to all these associations that we are there for you, come what may, I'm not going anywhere. And that's, I think, probably one quality which helped me to make these relationships. And these relationships basically are the reason why I'm here today.
Actually, it's really interesting that you've decoded it so beautifully for us, because earlier on you talked about how networking was a key strength, but beyond networking, it was the sense of trust that you created with each and every person that had them go like, okay, if we trusted our business with Rajiv, he will deliver it. Or if we work with him, we'll create value together. That's an important piece that people often overlook when they look at networking, because networking often becomes all about collecting name cards and telephone numbers. And it's not about having authentic and sincere relationships and just being interested in that other person as a person beyond what they can do to help you.
Yeah, I was always told that it's always good to focus and be a master of one. I don't believe in that strategy at all. I don't believe that you should be a master of one. I believe in a jack of all strategy completely. I dabbled in so many things in my life in terms of industries, in terms of businesses, that even today as I work, I want to get into different areas of, let's say, the BPO industry, different verticals within the industry, whether it's banking, healthcare. And the only way you can do that is you can have masters to manage your businesses, but you have to be extremely nimble, extremely opportunistic in terms of identifying opportunities and moving fast into those. And you can only do that if you're a jack of all. You cannot do it if you're a master of one. One of the reasons I believe you can grow very quickly in life is if you open up your mind to different aspects of businesses.
You're really pointing to something important, especially in today's world where a lot of things get disrupted very quickly. Yeah. If you are a specialist, and once you get disrupted, what do you do next? But if you're a generalist, you can then start to apply to join two other pieces together and create a fourth or a fifth piece.
I believe this is a survival strategy. Let's put it like that. And I've been a survivor, to tell you honestly. And one of the reasons why I or Data Direct, my company, has survived, see, we pivoted from direct mail. If I had stuck to that business, I would have been dead long back. I quickly moved out of it because I knew this is a dying business. I pivoted from that into something, and then from there to something. And today, if I look back, where I started and where I am today, it's totally different. We sort of moved so many times into so many directions, ultimately finding our own path. But purely because you have to be more farsighted, you have to be on the top of the curve, innovate constantly, and be an opportunist in the kind of environment you live in terms of what's going to come in future.
Wonderful. So I'm taking away from our discussion two key things. If we don't pivot and adapt as entrepreneurs, it's a sure death. And number two is that we want to demonstrate or even use some amount of foresight, be innovative and opportunistic.
Yeah.
So that we can stay ahead of the curve. Let's now move to the next topic, and that's about crisis and resilience. And I define anything which is a setback as a crisis. What's that most critical crisis that you've ever had in your life? What have you found to be the most enduring quality for managing crisis?
So, see, crisis can come anytime to anyone, and it can come in any form. It can come in the form of financial crisis. It can come in the form of a health crisis. It can come in the form of a personal family crisis. We have to be resilient and brave to face it. And in my life, of course, and in everyone's life, I'm sure, We've all gone through these situations, and I think everyone survives. It's not that people haven't survived. It's just that, have you come out of it stronger, or have you learned something out of it and ensured that the next time something like that has hit you, it has been a smoother transition out of that crisis or not? I'll tell you, in our business, for example, we've had several situations where we, as a service company, dependent on our vendors, suppliers, on technology in some form, deliver to our end customers. Being an outsourcing company, we have to work through vendors. Now, I remember one incident when we were just sort of stabilizing ourselves in 2008, 2009. One of my vendors, where we again had a huge amount of trust, completely sabotaged a project of ours, which was a very large project, which would have pivoted us into a different level in terms of recognition in the industry. I was held at ransom with that vendor, basically kind of a blackmail. I had to take a decision what to do. I didn't have the funds to give him, and he wanted to make use of that situation. It was a kind of a business malpractice. Yeah. Anyway, so I had to take a very strong call. It was a crisis for me because the client was a government institution and I was living in Dubai. This vendor was in India. We did not know what to do. If anything had to happen, it would be my neck and the company would have gone bust completely. I had to take a big risk to cut off my threads with this guy completely, and in a very, very short period of time, get another company who could take over this project and help me out of the trouble and all this, with obviously legal complications going on. But we managed that. It was a big crisis and it was a turning point. I could have just given up completely and gone back 5-10 years of my life. I said, no, we can't do that. And let's take it head on. We fought, we won because we were right, we were ethical, and we delivered to the customer with full satisfaction. That gave me a lot of strength. In fact, made me set up this whole business division of my own without dependent on a vendor like this. So actually, the threat gave me an opportunity, and that made a big strength out of Data Direct as a company. This crisis made me stronger. And even today, after 15 years or 14 years of that, I look back and said, I was very fortunate to get that situation in my life, which had made a big impact and added a lot of strength to me as well as the company.
I'm just finishing up my book on crisis resilience. I talk about exactly that, which is that in every crisis you get an opportunity, but whether you look at that situation as a crisis and become a victim and fall, or you see it as an opportunity, really depends on your perception. Right. That's what it was for you, because you were willing to take that risk, stand by your values, which is you're not going to be blackmailed by someone with unethical behavior. You had promised something to your client and you were going to deliver it. And that had you move forward in spite of knowing how risky it was and how uncertain the future looked at that moment, right?
Yeah. The fact was that we couldn't go back. We had to move forward, come what may. So I think that is where the leadership comes into play a lot. When you have nothing to lose, you only play to win. These kind of situations actually can come again. I'll tell you, this life is like this. You tend to play it better. And, as you move up the ladder, you become wiser. So you tend to kind of put things in place better. You select people better. I think wisdom comes over a period of time. Experience comes with age. We keep learning.
That's true. If there is one thing that you like to tell our young listeners, how would you advise them about managing crisis?
Patience is very important when it comes to crisis. Decision making is extremely important. You have to take the harder route, unfortunately, and that's where the success comes in. You take the easier route, it's not going to be giving you the right results. If you have to take a left or a right, when you come to a T-junction and the easier is on the left, think taking the right. I'm telling you, that's where you will find success.
Excellent. So someone also told me once before, pain now for gain later.
You should be willing to bear the pain. I'm telling you, without pain, you don't get success.
All right. Where are you in your spiritual journey?
Very interesting, Ramesh. I used to be extremely spiritual when I started my life, early childhood, you can say, and growing up. And I don't know, but actually I lost my spirituality during the crisis or prolonged period of my struggle. People say when you struggle, you become more spiritual. But for me, it was different. I actually lost my spirituality during that time. I stopped believing in God. I just concentrated on myself. Hard work is the only way forward. And I sort of lost trust on my fate. Everybody, I said, it's only me who can help myself. And in that journey, I disconnected myself from being spiritual, honestly speaking. But now that I've come to the stage in my life where I know I have had a bit of a full circle, and I think back of those days when I was spiritual, when I used to read a lot, when I used to follow my religion, being a Hindu, and the teachings and the principle of Hinduism, which I've read a lot. Now I feel it's time for me to rethink. These are things which make a person, the personality. And to a large extent, what I am today is because of those teachings, which I didn't realize I was inculcating as I was growing up in my childhood, taught to us by our parents and the environment, the society I used to live in, which was very spiritual. And now I feel if I can contribute that to my children or people around me in whatever way, it need not be through discourses or teachings, just a lifestyle of simplicity, of trust, caring, giving, because Hinduism is a way of life. It's not a religion, according to me. And this is what I want to now do. I am doing a lot of that with my family specifically and some friends, where we spend time in talking about these things and doing things related to this in whatever way. It's very nice, it's very relaxing. It gives me a peace of mind, whether I meditate or I help people in whatever way. I also feel I'm in a business, but if I run 1,000 families and I make sure that they get their salaries on time, they are able to support their families further back home, wherever they are from. It's a kind of a spirituality. Obviously, I run a business, I'm making profits and all is fine. But honestly, I am actually contributing in some way and I'm being spiritual. And I would love to do that continuously in a very fair manner so that I can help these families live a decent life. I believe it's a long way to go. Spirituality is an endless journey.
Yes.
Let's see if I can make that a part of my well-being and my life. It'd be great.
That's interesting because what you talked about in terms of it being a way of life and making it part of your lifestyle for you, given that you're an entrepreneur, you're running your business, and how you run your business is a big part of you, even down to ensuring that salaries are paid on time. It's like you do your duty. Everyone has a duty and they're fulfilling on that duty, and that can be a spiritual thing too, because that's what's going to make the world work. It's when people are not doing their duty that sometimes we have all the messes around.
I can only say that if the whole ecosystem or nature has to stay afloat, everyone has to do their duties. If everyone does their duty well, the world would be a much better place to live in and the whole ecosystem will be in balance.
That's right. Do you think it's possible to live a simple life in today's world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think simplicity is a very personal statement of an individual or a way of thinking of an individual. Beyond a certain level, money loses its value. Then obviously power comes into play and self-actualization on the Maslow's theory of needs, as we all know. I do look up to people who have achieved a lot in their life from a materialistic or a professional standpoint and still lead a very simple life. And again, that's not about wealth or materialistic pleasures. It's more about passion. If you have passions in life, you will pursue them. Now, when you pursue your passions, whether it's, let's say, classical music, which I like, and I learned that, whether it is any kind of a sport, which I play tennis, you tend to run lesser towards materialism and start pursuing those interests of your life, which make you lead a balanced life. Now, the moment it is balanced, it's to become simpler because you are not running after just one thing, which is, let's say, as a businessman, we're just not trying to make more money every day, setting up more businesses every day. I am taking time out of my 24 hours. I sleep well. I spend my time into my passions, which I'm doing. So I'm balancing my life. The more I balance my life, and I continue to do that, I know I am living a simple life. I do socialize. I have a lot of friends. I love going to parties. Everything is a part of our life. But I think I love living a simple life. I love eating simple food, wearing simple clothes. I might have hundreds of shirts in my wardrobe, but I will look at those 5 shirts every day in front of me. And typically I would wear one of those 5. Same with my friends. I may have hundreds of friends, but I would just pick up the phone and call up those 5 people. So I think that's the way I define simplicity.
That is profound, because you can bring simplicity to your life in different ways. And you've just shared an interesting way to look at it. So what is thriving for you?
So interesting. Thriving. Ambition, growth, passion, achieving what you wanted to do. If you're following these things, you will thrive. And love. At the end of the day, you want to be loved and you want to give love. And for me, my family is the foremost thing. And I thrive because I just want to see them happy. I want to see them successful. My kids, my wife to be as beautiful as she is even today, to always be that in her heart. That is thriving for me. I live for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Rajiv, for really being candid and sharing with us some of your wisdom acquired with experience. We've enjoyed having you here.
Thank you very much, Ramesh. A pleasure talking to you after so long. I think with this, you probably know me more than you've ever known me. And I hope we can meet soon and celebrate our friendship.
Yeah, I hope so too. And you're right. We never had the chance to have such authentic conversation when we were both graduate students at pursuing our MBA at Monash.
Because life had just begun for me. I didn't even know half of the things what I'm talking to you right now. Life has taken us through our own journeys. But yeah, God's been kind, and where I am today, I never knew I would be here. Thanks for your time and getting me on this forum platform. I'm pretty honored. I didn't realize that I can add much value, but I hope I can. And people who hear me, all the best to them. I wish them good luck. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to Rajiv's story and the business and life insights that he shared with Dr. Ramesh. Be sure to join us again here on our next Thriving in the Age of Disruption episode, where Dr. Ramesh will be chatting with dynamic mother and daughter pair, Miss Susan Lay and Miss Carton Ong, who are based in Australia.